Hey guys, welcome back to Release the Crafted. This is Priscilla with a sort of a different share for you guys today. This isn't a regular video for me. I thought I would get you guys on here and just start chatting with you and working on a side project of mine. Right now, the first journal that I will be putting out this year will be a Labyrinth journal for a personal swap I have coming up with Miss Kim from Serene Bookworks. So that's what I'm working on right now, and I've kind of had some changes with work and stuff, so I still work in the same department, but I work in a less stressful position, I guess, which has given me more of an artistic awakening, I guess. I've been wanting to get back into art journaling. Those of you who know me know that that's where I started. I didn't start out in junk journals or anything like that. I started out in art journaling and then ended up in junk journaling. So I thought it would be nice to start a junk journal-esque art journal series with you guys, and maybe it's something you'd like to see. So today I thought we would make the cover together, and then in future videos I'll make pages and stuff, and if you guys want to join me, you can. I think that'll be really cool. And I'll keep it up mostly on Instagram. I don't really do much on my Facebook page, so on Instagram I'll post, maybe the theme that I'm working on, and if you guys want to join me, you can make a journal page following that theme, and I'm just going to work out of this journal after I fill it with some paper for the whole year, and then at the end of the year we'll see how many pages we make. My goal is to make at least one page with you guys a month. So, if you're interested and you want to join in, that's great. Definitely tag me in your pictures on Instagram. If you're not interested and you just want to watch the videos, also great. I'll appreciate any ideas for themes or suggestions and stuff as the time goes on. There's a couple more things that I wanted to do for this year. I will be opening an Etsy shop. If not in February, then in March. I got a couple of things I have to work out for that. I have one more person on my list of people I'm personal swapping with, and then after that I'm going to start working on some other journals that I have planned coming up. So for this year, my major plans is to do a journal series that I think I'm going to call Queens, quote unquote, of history. And it's not going to be all queens. It's just going to be a series surrounding strong women throughout history that I'm calling queens, because every woman is a queen in her own right. And so I think that'll be fun. I already have a list of women that I think I want to make journals for, and I've already started to gather some things. So as I work on that, I'll get more in touch with you guys and maybe get some feedback from y'all about which women inspired you the most. But I'm not going to do that until February. I'm going to start doing that in February. And I have a Valentine's-ish themed journal coming up soon too that I've been working on. It's not going to be a traditional Valentine's Day thing because I really don't like that Valentine's aesthetic, I guess. And that might just be coming from a retail perspective because I've worked pretty much every Valentine's Day since I've started working as an adult, and the whole holiday is kind of blown out for me, but I thought it would be fun to do something a little bit off the beaten tracks. I'm going to call it a love story as opposed to a traditional Valentine's journal, so that's also coming up. I can't think of anything else that I have planned, but if I do think of it, I'll just throw it out here as I'm working. But, so for this, what I'm doing today is I'm going to do sort of a collage-y art journal-esque bit to make this piece of, it's not chipboard, it's not thick enough, just scrap cardboard, pressed board, I guess, I don't know what it's called, into a journal cover. As you can see, I've already cut it down to size, and then I've punched some holes in it, just to make it easier to sew the pages in. I have a lot of cardstock, and just various pieces of paper that I know I'm not going to use in my junk journals as they're like odd colors and things like that. Just stuff that I bought that was on sale. I have a lot of supplies in my craft space, and I'm pretty sure a lot of you do too, that you just kind of have accumulated as time goes on, you know, based on sales or things that you were like, oh, I could do something with this, but you weren't really sure about what you were going to do with it. So I have a lot of stuff like that. So I'm going to try to use it up. Probably not all in here because I have way too much stuff for that. But I thought I would pull together some of that stuff to just give you guys some ideas on how to use things that maybe you picked up on the off chance you would use it, but never actually got around to using it. So, this piece of board I got from some ladies that I work with. They hooked me up with all the book board that I use, but this was like an extra piece that they had, and they asked me if I wanted it. So, of course, I took it. I have like 12 of these now. And they're about the thickness of a file folder. So if you wanted to make your own, you could do that. It's a little bit thicker than a file folder. You might even want to glue the file folder together and put both sides together, and that would give you the right thickness. But I don't think it's going to matter how thick it is, really, as long as it's not just regular paper, because you want something to be a little bit sturdy to protect your pages. And then I just punched the holes in it. I think I probably will set some eyelets in, just to keep them from wearing down as I use the book. But I figured it would be simpler to just stitch 2 holes into every page and then not have to fight with this cover, because the paper is going to be really thick to stitch that in too. And I haven't really given a lot of thought to how I'll do the closure yet. I might not even do a closure. I might just tie it shut with a ribbon, only because as I have learned from doing art journaling, your pages get really, really bulky after a while, and then it just gets harder to close. And then when you do smash stuff together, you end up like sticking the pages together, especially if you use Mod Podge, because Mod Podge has to cure before it can fully dry. So if you like, you know, paint all your stuff on, and then you go, okay, well, it's dry now, so I'm done, and then you shut it, your Mod Podge will stick to itself, because it needs to, like, air out for, like, 2 or 3 days, sometimes weeks, depending on how humid of an environment you live in. So I don't know if that's something you guys are familiar with. It's just something that I've experienced. So, handy tip is to not have an art journal that you smash shut, especially because sometimes you just don't know what you, how well you glued stuff down, so to speak. So sometimes you might have glue hanging out somewhere, or paint even, and it'll just stick together if you smash it all together. So, as for now, I haven't really given much thought to a closure. I might, at the end of the year, add one, and I'll do like a big flip through once I'm done. And then, you know, show you guys how I add a closure to it at the end of the year. But for now, all I've done so far is just cut this to size, punch the holes in it, and it's totally unfinished. I haven't added any gesso or anything to it. I have some papers here that I gathered up. This really hilarious piece of book page that April sent me in a Christmas present. And it says a pelican called Peter, and I just think it's the funniest thing ever. So I tore this up immediately so I could use it for this cover. Like, it's destined to be. So thank you, April, for that. There's another piece. She gave me some pages from a Shel Silverstein poem book, so I'm going to use one of those too. I have a napkin with some wood grain, which I believe Shayna sent me, but I'm not 100% on that, but thanks to whoever, probably Shayna. And then she also sent me this coffee-dyed piece of, like, encyclopedia-ish paper with some butterflies on it. I have this chipboard piece that says share, and that's going to be the title for the cover. Since I am working on a 11th journal, I have printed out some images, but what happened was I dropped my baby wipe onto these images, and they got really spotty, so I was really sad because I thought I was going to have to throw them away and reprint them. But then I just figured, you know what, it's going to be an art journal thing. I'll use these images so I don't have to throw them away, because they don't have to be perfect, and it kind of will add to the whole messy effect. Now, this is a piece of tissue paper that I have stamped using a Graphic 45, a Hampton Art stamp, from their Nature's Something 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 collection. I don't really remember what it's called. I don't have the paper collection, I just have the stamp collection because the stamps are beautiful. And I wanted to add this image to this, but I kind of want to keep this craft color, so I didn't want to lose it onto this. And this is a really handy trick, especially if you don't have like cutouts, but you have stamps. If you don't have images you want to use, but you have a bunch of stamps, I mean, you can just stamp it onto tissue paper and use that to make your images. And so that's what I did here, and I do that a lot. I have tons of tissue paper because you can buy a big pack from the dollar store, and it lasts forever. And so I just went ahead and stamped a bunch of these fern type leaves with some dye ink that I have from Ranger in Ivy. It's called Ivy. Just to get that ready before we started. And I think that's what I'm going to start using for this project. I have some stamps and some other stuff kind of set out to the side that I think I might use. But before I do anything to this cover, what I want to do, I think I'm going to either foil or gild this piece. So I'm going to do it just like I did in my note card tutorial. I'm going to use this Tombow Mono Liquid Glue. And I think I sprayed this. That's why it's so brown. You know, like when you're spraying a bunch of stuff like crazy, it just gets everywhere. I think that's what I did to this bottle, so ignore how brown it is. But this glue, sorry, tongue-tied, dries tacky if you don't adhere it to anything. So I'm going to stick that on here to let this dry while we work on the cover. And it'll totally be done way before we're finished with the cover. But I'm just going to squeeze out a glob of that, I think, and use my finger and spread it on there. And it doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to be on there. I do have some new editing software that I'm going to try out when I make this video, so if it looks crazy, that's because I don't know how to use the software yet. If it looks amazing, that means that I have mastered the software, and everybody should give me a round of applause because I don't know what I'm doing with any sort of editing whatsoever. But I'm going to take a crack at it, so you guys don't have to be bored watching this video. And I'm going to try to edit out any drying time or anything like that. So I'm just going to set this aside and let that dry. And then wipe up that glue so it doesn't stick to anything else. And so I have a bunch of ideas and things that I just kind of want to throw onto this page. I have a text stamp that I got at Hobby Lobby. I pulled it off the wood block. And then I immediately dropped it onto the floor. So as you can see, it's covered in glitter and cat hair. And I've been trying to scrub it off, but I don't really know what takes that off. So if you guys know what will take cat hair off of Sticky Back, let me know, because I would love for this to be cat hair free. But like most things in my life, it's never going to be cat hair free. So I'm just going to ink that up with some archival ink in black. And to keep from having the square edges, I'm going to roll this stamp in my hands and then just kind of stamp it out. And I'm not going for like a perfect impression. I just kind of want to break up the background a bit to start out with. It's possible that by the end of this you won't be able to see any of this whatsoever, but it's just part of my process I like to do. And so, I only typically ink up a background stamp like this once and just let it go to kind of let it get that faded impression. It's too far away. Just gonna put it back, but it's too far away. And so, what I'm thinking, and maybe I should have been more prepared for this. I have some soft gloss gel, which I think I'm going to use as my glue. It dries transparent, and it's kind of like matte medium. It's from Prima, and I'm just going to tear this out and just start working with it. Not really worried about getting a perfect image transfer. Or I guess a perfectly cut out image. Excuse me. Been a little bit under the weather for a while now. I can't figure out what it is. It's probably the plague or something awful. But anyways, using the soft gloss gel will also seal whatever I put down on here so that I can use different mediums on top. So when I think I'm going to incorporate some color into this later, it will protect the image from any sort of strangeness happening. You know, they won't damage the tissue paper and it won't damage the ink or anything like that. So I don't have a particular theme in mind here. There was just, you know, a bunch of images that I liked that I wanted to incorporate. So this cover will be pretty eclectic. But if you're one of the people who wants to make their own cover and kind of follow along, you can come up with a theme for yours if you want. I think anything that really just kind of says art journal to you will work. So I'm going to dry this, and hopefully I'll have mastered that editing software and you don't have to watch me do it. Alright, so it's mostly dry, and I'm going to go ahead and trim off the excess bits. You guys can wait till the end. A lot of people wait till the end to trim theirs off, but I just have like too much OCD and the need to see how things are going to leave that kind of stuff on. And apparently here I forgot how to use scissors. Okay, so get rid of those little pieces. So there's some spots where there's not a perfect, like, adhesion. So I'm just going to pull that off, and that'll also add to the kind of rough around the edges effect. And it's part of the reason why I don't completely dry between layers, just to kind of loosen up some stuff. And make it look a little bit more organic. Which is also a step, you know, that can be easily skipped. So, I think I'm going to add some of this wood napkin to the background. And had I been smarter, I would have separated the sheets before we started the video, so that you didn't have to watch me struggle in my fight against the napkin. But as April says, it's just paper. And I have to be smarter than the paper. And maybe I am. Oh, no, I just tore it. So I'm going to save this, because this is also tissue paper that you could stamp your images onto. I think tear into that, and I'm not going to think too hard about it. I'm going to use this little piece I tore off too. So like that. And I'm not worried about covering up the holes because I am not doing the inside cover, so I'll be able to punch it out anyways and see just fine. that. I think it's this little straight line that's throwing me off. There we go, like that. You could easily use Mod Podge for this too. I just have a bunch of this soft gloss gel on hand. But also remember what I said about Mod Podge. It has to cure. So if you do use Mod Podge, you're going to want to give yourself... You're not going to set anything onto this cover for a while. And apparently there's still some glitter in my brush from the other projects I'm working on. So that's now in here, which is fine. I do plan on doing that embossing video soon. I did shoot it a couple of times, and then realized that I was kind of in a grumpy mood when I was shooting, so it's not as fun or educational as a video as I would prefer it to be. So I'm going to reshoot it coming up here. Probably right after I do this video, because I'm in a much better mood, even though I don't feel well. I don't know if you guys who are creators here on YouTube, if you ever, have you ever made a video and then been like, man, I was such a grouch, I should, like, restart? Or are you always happy in every video? I don't know how that goes. It might just be me who's a total grouch. Alright, like that so far. And like I said, a lot of that stamping we already did is going to get covered up, but I'm not worried. I'm going to show you guys how I layer stamps back in and stuff like that. So I'm going to dry this again. Alright, so I've grabbed some more of my archival inks, and I think the page is pretty much dry. Going to trim off the edges. Lost my scissors. And also hit the camera, so sorry about that. What I was thinking is I'm going to use, I'm going to stamp some stuff in brown. Probably in this sepia. Sepia? I don't know. To just kind of add to the layers upon layers of stuff that's going to go on here. I have this postcard stamp, which I think I got at Joann's. I also just realized I have ink on my hand. I've already torn this off the block, and then just reattached it to keep it from getting sticky and covered in glitter and cat hair like my other stamp. And, I mean, I mostly do that just to have a little more control and a little less precision when I'm stamping. I also want to say that I am using soft gloss gel, which is a gloss, it's not matte. There's a bunch of matte mediums you can use if you prefer matte, but I think I do want a glossy finish on this at the end, and I'm pretty confident that by the end of this I'll have covered the whole page in it, so it'll all be kind of glossy. But I do like using the soft gloss gel because it's not as high gloss as like the Gloss Mod Podge and other sort of like the Liquitex gloss mediums. So I think that's why I chose to use soft gloss gel. But right now I'm using archival inks because I'm going to wet the paper later, and I don't want my background to run. So that's why I'm using archival inks. Now I have a ton of like distress inks and distress oxides, and those will run because they're not permanent. as you apply water to them. So you'll just have wasted most of your time trying to stamp in a background. So that's why I'm using archival ink. Just brain stops sometimes. And this is kind of how I build the layers in stamping. So as I go along, I'll add some more stamps. So even if I'm covering up images, by the end of it, there should be a little bit of every stamp, and it should kind of tie the whole background bit together. And I think one of the things I like to do is just make the most of all the ink that I put onto my stamp, because you get some cool effects with secondary and tertiary stamping as you go along. So you guys might want to try that. I haven't decided whether I'm going to do all my art journal videos with narration, or if I'm just going to do like a voiceover with music and captions. Maybe. I don't know. I haven't decided. I know that the software I have will allow me to do that. So it's more of a playing with it and seeing what I'm comfortable with. So, because there's gloss gel on this, you do want to let it dry just a little bit. You can hit it with your heat tool, but I think what I'm going to do is start planning my next step. A pelican called Peter is definitely going right there, you guys. And going to use these images. I think The Labyrinth is my favorite movie. That's why it's going on here. It's not even anything kind of relevant. Just gonna tear it. I have a really hard time tearing book pages out of paper, like out of books. So most of my friends just send me the paper already cut out or torn out from their books, which is great. You guys are the best for that, because I would just sit there and be like, nope, can't do it. And I don't know if anybody else feels that way, but I just have such a hard time. I know it's something that's really popular in the Junk Journal Junkies group and stuff like that, and I can't do it. All my paper needs to come pre-torn, otherwise I'm just staring at it. Yeah, like that. Maybe. But once it's out of the book, I don't have any problems, as you guys can see. And I'm going to sneeze again. So sorry. Right now I'm just trying to get rid of that harsh line without destroying my image too much. And I know, especially for like napkin pages and like printer paper type things that are this thin, you can like get a paintbrush and dip it in water and then go around your image and use that to tear with some more precision. Okay, you guys, sorry about that. I went to check the time on my camera and realized that the video had already cut out. So, I don't think I got too far ahead of you. I just glued all my images down, dried it off, and then trimmed off the excess, and then I tore away some of the edges that didn't dry or that weren't totally stuck down. So I think what I want to do next is I want to use a stencil. I was going to use some texture paste, but decided that takes way too long to dry if I want it to dry properly. So I'm going to use some gesso, some heavy black gesso. And I have a stencil here. It's from TCW, the Crafters Workshop, and it's one of Gabrielle Polacco's stamps. Polacco? It's called Mini Organic Matter Mask. So it's actually a mask, it's not a stencil. But I'm going to use that. And a palette knife. And I'm just going to apply the gesso straight to my craft surface. Mostly so I can have more control over where it goes. We're going to see how this goes. I don't really have a lot of confidence in this. I tend to not have that much luck when using a liquid medium on a stencil, so we'll see. Yeah, not too bad. A little bit of leakage, but nothing that's going to make me quit. The good thing, though, about using the gloss gel is that you guys can, like, it's pretty much made your surface, non-porous. That's the word. So you could just wipe it off if you don't like what you did, or you almost dragged your paper through. Oh, no, I did. Somewhere, for sure. And so you get kind of a cool impression too when you don't use anything and you just let the whatever's left on the stencil get picked up. Oh, I didn't do anything. And never mind the noise in the background. That's one of my cats doing something strange and unusual. Smokey. Hold on. Hey. Great. Sorry about that, you guys. Sometimes when I'm filming, they like to do stuff because they know I'm not paying any attention. And here I just flipped it over. Just to kind of get more of that reverse impression. And I think I'm happy with that. Going to try to salvage this onto a different sheet of paper. I actually just stuck it into my palette. I'm pretty sure I'll come up with a use for that later. So, I'm going to dry this off again. And then I will be right back. Also going to wash my stencil. Wash your stencils right away, you guys.